And so before I start my talk, I always like to keep my promises. So I did ask you first of all, see if that insight came up to the answer to that very deep question of the 60 cows in the field, 28 chickens, how many didn't? And the answer is 40. 28 chickens, 40 did not eat chickens. They ate grass. That is totally silly. Yeah, eating, 28 chickens. How many didn't? 40. No, one of the reasons I say silly things like that is just because sometimes when people come to a talk, they can be so serious. And sometimes after the talk, I've been given talks on so many different subjects over the years, and sometimes, what do you remember from the talk which Ajahn Brahm gave? I remember the joke. Fair enough. Because as you're giving sort of Dhamma talks, the teachings of Buddhism, why can't these things be fun and joyful and happy? Is that the right thing, or did I do the wrong thing? Should I say sorry? Because that is the title of tonight's talk. Sorry. I was looking for new talks to give. I think I've given that years ago. But sorry, what does that actually mean? And do you really need to feel sorry? Because sometimes it's been almost brainwashed into us. If you don't feel sorry when you made a mistake, then number one, you're going to do it again. And number two, you've hurt people. That's really terrible. So what actually is this whole emotion of regret and sorry? It all comes from this judgmental attitude of human beings. And of course, you've had that, especially when you were growing up. You did something wrong, you made a mistake, you did it wrong, but do you feel sorry about it? Does that really help? Because a lot of times, if people feel sorry about something, they feel regret, a lot of times they hide it. They can't really sort of take the fact that they're a human being, they do a stupid thing, they make a mistake, and they don't want other people to know. But most of it, they don't want themselves to know they made a mistake. And to me, I couldn't really find any real use for that in the growth, the learning, the harmony, and just getting past problems which we have. Too many people feel sorry all the time. And it gets to such an incredible state that sometimes just I'm walking down the road and someone hits me. And I say, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't do anything. But you're supposed to say sorry because it's being polite. Is anybody sort of, that you have been mindless, you've been doing something else, and you sort of hit somebody, and has anyone actually said, that they say sorry, and you say, yes, you deserve to be sorry for what you just did to me. Of course, that's never done, isn't it? Because a lot of time our language is constrained by our, what we call is being polite, by our culture, by not trying to offend anybody. Whereas sometimes people who actually bump into you, they should be much more mindful. Though to me, when I was, sorry, I said sorry again, didn't I? Was that my fault? What am I saying sorry for? I just got irritation in my throat, not my fault. So I'm not going to say sorry. I retract my sorry statement. It's just being, it's being a human being. And so sometimes when we recognize as human beings, so often people feel guilty, they feel sorry, they feel ashamed. And my goodness, you shouldn't be. What was that story years ago, just over in the corner over there this woman came to listen to the talk, and she, during the meditation, she laid down and she fell fast asleep. We don't mind that at all, but she started snoring. Some women can really snore loudly. She was really going for it. And somebody, after about 5 or 10 minutes, they nudged her to wake her up. And afterwards I said, "What do you do that for?" "Well, she was snoring so loudly." Please don't ever do that again. Because the story behind it, because this woman had come up to see me beforehand and explained to me just her situation. She was a victim of domestic abuse at home, quite severe, and there wasn't that much help for her in those days, quite a few years ago. And this poor lady had come here, and when she came into this room, she actually felt safe. The first time for probably weeks, she felt she could put her guards down. No one would harm her. It was a very secure place. And she was so tired, she was exhausted. So she lay down and had the first bit of sleep she'd had for weeks. And so when she lay down like they fell asleep, wonderful, well done. For us, just a little bit of noise. But for her, a bit of opportunity to feel safe and feel free and have a bit of rest. And I was very proud that, first of all, she thought this was a safe place. But after thought, "Oh, why did you spoil it? It's only a bit of noise, nothing much." And there was the other time when a retreat which I was teaching over in Sydney, that this person was, he came to see me beforehand. He said he had a 9-day retreat. He said he would probably make a lot of noise during the retreat, not because he was sleepy. It was because he couldn't breathe through his nose. It was a gentleman who had sinus cancer, big tumour in the bridge of his nose. And he said he couldn't breathe through his nose. It was all blocked up, totally. And he had to breathe through his mouth. So when he was he's doing his meditation in the hall with everybody else, you know what happened? I got all these questions. "Ajahn Brahm, could you please ask people to breathe quietly when they're meditating?" He didn't have a choice. He couldn't do anything except that breathing through the mouth. When I told everybody that what his situation was, they had this huge tumour in his nose, and he came to check in with me when he first came on this retreat and told me that it was basically what they call the last row of the dice. His doctor had basically said there's nothing more we can do. And so he decided to try some meditation. Who knows? And when I said that to everybody, because he told me beforehand, maybe I should have told everybody straight away. But when I told them what the situation was, no one complained after that at all. Even the sound of him breathing heavily, they thought, "Come on, you can do it, go for it." He had so much support when they realized why he was doing something which was disturbing to people. He didn't need to say sorry at all. He was doing his very best. But of course, the nice part of that story, the reason why I always remember it, and I will always remember it, was that 9 days. But because we know what he was doing and how he was trying the best, it didn't disturb anybody at all. The last day, I can never forget this. Just going into the car, just climbing into the car with my bowl and my bag to get to Sydney Airport to come back to Perth. And he came running after me. "Ajahn Brahm, stop. It's very hard to stop, when you've got a plane to catch to come back to see all of you. And I stopped. What happened? And he said that his last meditation, for those of you who've been on retreats know what meditation is like, the biggest problem we have is we try too hard. He'd been trying for 9 days. In the very end, he'd given up. Can't do it. It's not working. Brilliant. Because that's when it happened. He said to me, and I remember the words, there was a popping sound. Pop! And he could breathe through his nose. First time he'd done that for weeks. And he wasn't imagining it. There's air coming in and out of his nose. But then it closed up again. And he had to breathe through his mouth again. But he had maybe a minute or 2 minutes of breathing through his nose. Because all that did was give him encouragement. Something weird had happened. And I thought that he'd left it too late, and it's just not enough, because he was pretty much coming to the end of his life. But of course, the joyful thing was going to visit Sydney about 6 months later or 9 months later for some reason, I forget what. And this guy coming up to me. I often tell you, please don't ever say this to me, that, do you recognize me? And there's a few Sri Lankans here, and sometimes, remember I would be giving these big talks, 10,000 people in BMICH, big convention centre over in Colombo in Sri Lanka. And people say, oh, do you remember me, Ajahn Brahm? I was one of the people in the crowd at BMICH. I saw you there. 10,000 people, come on, give me a break. But anyway, but sometimes it's wonderful. And that's what this person did. They came up and said, do you remember me? I said, no, I don't. Because I'm honest. I do have this little trick sometimes. When I say to people, they come and say, do you remember me? And I say, oh yes, you're the person whose name I keep forgetting. That's a nice little trick if you want to use it. But anyway, I said, don't know, who are you? And I was fair enough, because you couldn't recognize him. When a person has cancer and they're close to death, they're really thin, gaunt, and you can see the life in their face is just very dim. But this fellow was really healthy. And he said that was just the start, that first popping sound. He carried on his meditation, and of course it popped more times until that tumour in his nose went into full remission. Disappeared, just with the meditation. You can imagine what that does to me who taught that. Wow. Yes! Well done. And, he was fine. He said, the final part of that story was that he said whatever many years he has left, he's going to use it just teaching other people for free, just how to meditate and how not to give up hope, and how there's many other ways to looking after this body of ours. A wonderful job he did. But the point was that he had to do that breathing loud, and it eventually saved his life. Did he need to say sorry for that? Not in my book. He was doing the best he could with what he had. And the compassion, which is supposed to be part of any spirituality, especially with something like Buddhism, the kindness and compassion surely can be wide enough and embracing enough to not sort of chase somebody out, when they lay down and fall asleep here. They won't chase them out, when they breathe very loudly. Surely we can be kind enough to just have a beautiful heart and realize everybody's trying their best with what they have. They don't need to say sorry. And when we do make a mistake, we don't need to say sorry. If you make a mistake, that's where you start learning. I was a school teacher for 1 year. This is a school teacher story here, but it's an important part of this, though many of you have heard it before. But I'm not going to say sorry for repeating it. That was just when, I had to learn just how to teach. Because sometimes you give tests for your students. This is at high school in London. Oh, sorry, not in London, in Devon. And that's the UK. And you give them tests, but I didn't know how to set a test. If you set it really hard, then of course not many people get good results. Set it too easy, and then everybody gets a good result. It's not useful at all. But I was told by another teacher, try 70% rule. 70% rule is that you set an exam or a test and try to aim for 70% average score. If it's 70% average score, for most people, they perceived that that's a good score. If say it was in maths, that they can do maths. But the 30% where they make mistakes, that was the most important part for me, their teacher. They didn't have to say sorry or feel bad about making mistakes, 30% wrong. I didn't need to feel bad that I hadn't taught them properly. That was actually where I got feedback. I could understand what they hadn't learnt. This was a school. This is what we're supposed to be doing there. Finding out where people were weak, or they didn't know the answers, where they didn't understand the instructions. Finding that out, and not punishing people for that, or making them feel bad about it, but actually in the next lessons, doing those parts of maths so they can actually do better next time. It was the growth, so people could improve all the time and become better mathematicians or better at doing the sums when they left school. So there was nothing about blaming or feeling diminished or demeaned or lesser because you made mistakes. There wasn't a place for the kid to say, oh, sorry, I made too many mistakes. No, you're not judged for your mistakes. The mistakes are part of life. You can't even be, say, judged for all the good things you did or the correct answers you did. You've got to put them all together and look, this is how we're growing and learning together. And that means that you don't need to hide any weaknesses. Weaknesses you tell people so that they can be helped to do better next time. And again, 70% I thought was a wonderful statement by this teacher, an old teacher about to retire, because it meant that that's what we try in life. How many people are 80, 90%, 100% successful in life? How many people are hopeless in life? 10%, 20%, 30% in life. Reality, you've got many weaknesses, many mistakes in your life. You've got many beautiful parts of you in your life. And so, being a main teacher of all these monks and some of the nuns as well, and you as well, I've known many of you for so many years, and you've got some really, really bad parts in you, haven't you? Some really terrible faults. But you can't feel angry about that because you've got some beautiful parts in you and some wonderful sort of qualities in you. You see the whole lot. I try to do that all the time, even people who haven't been here for very long. And you're lovable. I like the word lovable because it's fun being around you. That's the point, that instead of when you make mistakes saying sorry, say, no, thank you. You made me laugh. Oh, those times I just made stupid mistakes. Oh, I haven't told this for a while, I think. In Penang Airport many years ago, I hope some of those disciples over in Penang are just listening because, just are really great disciples. Oh, in Malaysia and other places as well. But this particular time, just they were sending me off at Penang Airport, having taught a retreat in Penang. And at the airport, having checked in and got your ticket all arranged, that they gave me this really delicious, diabetically enhanced, sugary, milky coffee. Delicious. I say diabetically enhanced because it's pretty sweet, but it's okay. So they had it, and I knew I had it before. It's really delicious. And when it's, people give it to you, you don't need to feel guilty. Instead, I thought, well, I'm giving them an opportunity to make good karma, so I can't refuse it. We all got these excuses and ways. So anyway, I know it was a long journey I was going to do from Penang to Singapore and Singapore back to Perth. So I started drinking it. But, had a straw in it. Just I started drinking the straw. Oh, man. I started sucking it, but, I don't know why. Sometimes in these coffee shops, they may have used old straws or something. It's going to happen sooner or later. All the straws they make, and one of them was constricted or blocked or something. So what would you do? You have this beautiful coffee in there, and you're sucking it through a straw, and it just can't come through. I tried to suck harder. Really, because I thought that once that sort of blockage had come through, then I could suck it easily and enjoy my coffee. But it was going harder and harder, and my face was going red. That's what I noticed. All these so-called friends. Instead of telling me, they were just trying to stop laughing. Because, I think in Penang Chinese Buddhist culture, it's not really nice to sort of laugh at your teacher. That's what they wanted to do, burst out laughing at my stupidity. They had their hands over their mouth trying to stop laughing. And then I realized I was doing something wrong. So I looked, and I took out the straw. It was a spoon. It was why do they need to put a spoon in there? It was already stirred up. And it looked like a straw. When I was a young man, that's what you had in those straws. When I was young, spoons were like metal, and they're silver. This was like orange or something, a plastic spoon or something. I never said sorry. I never felt like I was embarrassed at all. I thought, what a wonderful story to share with others. And I've been sharing that story for years and years and years and years. And many of you laughed, didn't you? So why should we ever say sorry if we'd made a big mistake and done something stupid? Why instead not share it with as many people as you can? It's not to be embarrassed about. It's not there's been a big mistake. You've been a human being. And human beings, that's our nature. We do make mistakes. We do silly things sometimes. And that's one of the reasons I love looking at cartoons. There's a whole lot of cartoons over by my seat over there we got recently. Oh, and some of those, I don't know if they can translate without the figures on there. But anyway, all human beings doing stupid things. And the reason that I can do those stupid things as well, I have done those stupid things in my life. And instead of being embarrassed about them and feeling sorry, we share them with others. Almost like celebrating the mistakes of life, instead of being embarrassed by them. And to find that if you celebrate some of the mistakes you do in life, many small mistakes in life. What was that cartoon of the person who they got up in the middle of the night, this old man. He got up in the middle of the night to go to the loo. And then when he came back into bed, he thanked his wife. He said, it's always really difficult going into the toilet at night time and finding out where the light is. But, really thank you for putting on this automatic light so when I open the door, the light comes on so I know where to urinate. And she said, oh my goodness, you've urinated in the freezer again. Well, it looks like a door. So when people make silly mistakes like that, sometimes instead of feeling that somehow you're diminished or there's something wrong with you, we can just enjoy and share with as many people as possible. And clean the freezer out afterwards. It's not that hard to do. But little by little we understand that we do make mistakes. Instead of saying sorry, which is almost thinking you shouldn't have done it, it's no, if I hurt you, that's not very nice, so I apologize for hurting you. But mistakes happen, and this idea of feeling sorry is sometimes counterproductive. Have it ever happened to you, especially when you were growing up, you made a mistake, your mum and dad said, you should feel bad about that. And so often, it wasn't my fault, I didn't know. I was just a boy, just growing up and learning about life. And instead of being more wonderful, if I'd have made a mistake, my mother or father would have just given me a hug, saying, I'll help you clean up, but don't do it that way anymore, do it this way instead. Then I would not have been afraid of learning, afraid of growing. Because sometimes we're so afraid we're told to say sorry, and I don't know what I'm sorry for. Sometimes, there's one of the monks, I shouldn't mention his name, but sometimes when he's eating, he really makes a loud burp. You know who he is, don't you, Rodney? But anyway, he really makes a loud burp. He never says sorry. He's got good reason. How can he be sorry for that? It's natural. It's just his digestion. He sort of eats a lot, but much louder than that. Is that wrong? So it's a wonderful thing to be in a monastery where we're smart, we're wise, and we're kind. So you can burp as much as you like. Would you feel more at ease and free? Because so many of us, you can understand, we're afraid of life because there's so many laws and rules we're supposed to keep, and no one really explains it to them, and they're impossible to keep. It can't be done. And instead, what would happen if I was giving a talk and you'd really give a loud burp, and I'd just laugh? And so would you all as well. So there's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to say sorry. You actually enlivened the talk, which was quite boring, so thank you for burping in the middle of the talk, or whatever it really is. So little by little, some of this idea of sorry, we try and stop that. And these are the small things we say sorry for. And that makes us try and control out of fear more and more and more. It's the controlling out of fear is a problem. Because when we say sorry, it's like a personal failing. That I shouldn't have said that, I shouldn't have done that. You either hide it or you feel guilty about it afterwards. How many of you suffer from guilt? For me, I learned one of the wonderful things I learned when I first became a Buddhist. I was looking for guilt and how to get rid of guilt, and it wasn't there. They didn't have guilt. And I thought, wow, this is really weird. You have a religion or a spirituality, you don't have guilt, you're not told the bad places you're going to go to after you die, unless you do the right things. What are the right things? What are the human things? What's the difference there between right and being human? Humans aren't always right. They make many mistakes in life. And I keep on saying this, and all these times I do ceremonies for people getting married. Oh my goodness. If you think you want to find the perfect woman to marry or the perfect guy to marry, come on. What was that? Lovely, I've said this story for years about the Buddha. And he was, one of his disciples really want to become a monk. But his mother wouldn't let him. No, you don't get a monk. You get a wife. You get married. We've got lots of money for you. You get married and keep on the family tradition and the family line. You've got to, we've got to have somebody take over the name when we all die. So you get married. He said, no, I want to be a monk. No, you get married. I want to be a monk. No. So he was very smart. He said, okay, Mum and Dad, I will get married if you will get me the woman which I would like. And they were very rich and powerful, so okay, whatever woman you want, what colour hair, how big, just how attractive, how obedient, whatever it is in those days. And this is actually in the suttas. I don't make this one up. And then in the end, the deal was if parents couldn't find a girl to fulfill all of his requirements, then he could become a monk. He did become a monk because the one requirement which the parents couldn't find a girl to fit that requirement is the girl had not to be able to fart. So anything else, we can get on this blonde or brunette or this big, that big. But I'm sorry, we tried everywhere. We can't find any girl in the country who doesn't fart. Same with guys as well. I'm not. So in the end, he had to become a monk. A very smart fellow. So if you pass wind, you fart. Do you feel embarrassed? How many of you fart and you say sorry? It's a natural process, for goodness sake. Of course, you could be considerate. To be considerate, as I've often said, those who do have problems in that area, you've ate something today and you're passing a bit too much wind. For goodness sake, out of compassion and kindness and awareness for others, please sit in the back. Because then if you sit in the back, only the window gets the smell, not the people sitting behind you. So now you know there's a few people always sit in the back. Now you know why, don't you? Or against the wall or somewhere. So what I'm saying here is obviously it's just the nature of the human beings. We don't expect us to be something we can never be. And also you find out when you are more honest to yourself, and don't keep saying sorry and pretend these things don't happen. When you are more honest to yourself and realistic to yourself, and when you're more loving to yourself, you find that you lose a lot of that tension, that stress, that fear of what other people think of you, which is expressed by always saying sorry for this and sorry for that. You regret that. You lose that. And you feel more at ease with yourself, at peace with yourself. You're a human being. You don't expect to be perfect. You relax more, and because of your greater sense of relaxation, you find you're not such a pain in the butt for other people to enjoy. When a person's such a control freak, saying sorry for everything, trying their best to hold it in, you find you get so tense. You have lots of health and emotional problems as well. It's obvious. Have you ever tried to hold something in and you find out that you feel so tight and tense, your mind gets tight and tense, you get this idea that to be able to be acceptable in our world, you have to be so tight. I appreciate this comment which somebody made to me years ago. It's over somewhere by UWA. There was an executive conference, and they always want somebody new to try and tell some new jokes or something. or new ideas. So I was invited to give this lecture it was executives, business executives, for about an hour. But during the question and answers, I really appreciated that one of the people there said they were watching my body language, what I was talking. And they said that that they were brought up in a Catholic school. And they said all the nuns in that spirituality there, they were dressed up so tight, physically. Everything was really tight. He said, look at you, and your robe is falling off this way, and robe is falling off that way. And my glasses too. He said, you're so loose. He said, yeah, why not? But they got the message there. You're more at ease with imperfections. Have you got imperfections? Of course you have. We all have. We don't try and hide them. As long as the imperfections aren't that great, we can actually enjoy and celebrate our imperfections. It makes us human. And that's one of the reasons why, just going back onto the idea of like marriages. There's a marriage here last Saturday. And just told people that in a marriage, it was an Asian marriage, a Malaysian and Indonesian. And I mentioned to them that because it's an Asian culture they were marrying into, that they have to follow some of the Asian ways of doing things. So when I told them, when you get married, it's like single man, single woman, like a being with two legs, and they can go whichever way they want. Once you're married, the simile is like you're an elephant with four legs. And so you have to go in the same direction. You can't have the front legs going one way and the back legs going another way. And because it's Asia, the man has to be the front legs and the woman has to be the back legs. And when I told that to the woman, she was a little bit downcast. But then I told her, yes, but you haven't heard the end of this yet. The man has to be the front legs in Asia. The female has to be the back legs. But in Asia, you will find the elephant always walks backwards. Is that true? Yeah, I've been in Asia for 9 years. But anyway, see, what was that other thing which... these lovely anecdotes. This was a wonderful lady over in Singapore who did a lot of marriage counselling. But some of that was when she was married. I had a wonderful relationship with her husband. I've been to see them many, many times. But anyway, when she did get married, she told me that her father-in-law, because last week I said some bad things about mothers-in-law, didn't I? Yeah, there are no bad things about fathers-in-law. Not really bad things. But anyway, this father-in-law, he took aside his new daughter-in-law. And no, was it? No, it's actually the father-in-law took aside the son-in-law. Yeah. And he said to the son-in-law, you probably think my daughter is so perfect. And he just married her. And so the new husband said, oh, your daughter? Oh, she's so gorgeous. She's so beautiful. She's so charming. She cooks just such delicious food. She's just a wonderful joy to be with her. Even the way she picks her nose is so, gorgeous. And the father said, yes, that's what it's like when you fall in love, when you're getting married. It's just beautiful, and you like everything about her, everything. But the father-in-law said, I'll give you some advice, son-in-law. In a couple of years, maybe 3, maybe less, you'll start to see the faults and defects in my daughter. Now when you're in love, you can't see anything bad. But after a couple of years, maybe 3, you start to see the faults and defects in my daughter. But I want you to remember this, son-in-law. If my daughter did not have those faults to begin with, she would have married someone much better than you. And there's truth in that, isn't there? So, any of you who are fed up with your partner, always keep that in mind. All those faults in your partner, if they didn't have those to begin with, they would have married someone much better than... I better not say that, had I? But you got the message. So what I'm going back to is like human nature. We're not perfect. And to understand that, learn from it, try to grow from it, but don't try and hide it and deny it. And then you can have some wonderful relationships together. I just said this afternoon at 6 o'clock, because somebody was, they came to get a blessing for the person who passed away recently. Just to do some chanting on their ashes. But there was a couple there, and a husband and wife. It was the daughter and the son-in-law of the person who died. And I couldn't resist by giving them some marital advice. I don't know why they come to me for marital advice, saying I've never been married. I've been a monk, celibate for 47 years. But nevertheless, this is some advice which I thought was beautiful. It's something which I often do when people get married, and I'm right in front of them. And it was advice which I gave to this. She was a TV star, had her own show in Malaysia. I just happened to be in Malacca teaching a 1 or 2 day retreat when this girl, that she was getting married, and she followed me on YouTube and read the books and stuff, and she really, really, really wanted, if it's possible, for me to do a blessing. And it just happened I was there that day. Didn't have to go specially anywhere. So I gave her this little marriage blessing. And because she was a celebrity in Malaysia, Sandria, her name was, she kept in touch with me. And she even emceed one of the talks which I gave over in Malaysia another time. And she always kept in touch and said how wonderful this advice had been to keep her marriage together. So the one thing which really stood out, and it was a forgiveness ceremony. I told her on the anniversary of her marriage, I knew what that day was, I was there at the time. On the anniversary of your marriage, the two of you, husband and wife, just go out for a little dinner somewhere or spend some time by yourselves, just the two of you. Exchange a little gift, doesn't have to be anything special. Actually, I did say this story at the wedding last Friday, a week ago. The story about the man who asked his wife, said, it's Valentine's Day soon. Is there anything you need I can give you for, our marriage? He said, no, I don't need anything. I've got you, darling. That's enough. He'd been married long enough to realize that's not what she meant. Is there something I can get you? Something personal, something you'd really like? We've been together for a while now and the business is going well for us. Can I get you something? And she looked him in the eyes, decided to, why not? He offered diamonds, he said. Just something with diamonds in. Just something with diamonds, darling? Yes. And he wouldn't lie, he was a very good husband. So the following day, on Valentine's Day, she received this little package, really wrapped up beautifully, a nice ribbon. To my darling wife, happy Valentine's Day. And I imagine you getting a present like that. Oh, it's so sweet. And then she opened it. And he didn't lie. Inside the present, there was a pack of playing cards. Had 13 diamonds inside. Please don't try that and blame me. Otherwise I'll have to go to the court. The reasons why you got divorced. Ajahn Brahm's advice. But anyway, there's the other one is actually good advice. Just doing a forgiveness ceremony together once a year. Just because realizing you're honest, your imperfections. You say to one another, darling, if there's anything I've done by body, by speech or by mind, even thoughts which you don't really know, which may have hurt you or harmed you, or things which I didn't do, which I should have done, sincerely, I'm a human being, I'm trying to grow, please forgive me. And then it's a turn of the other person to ask forgiveness for all the things which you have done, or not done, which you should have done, or things which you thought of or said which had hurt the other person. A lot of the times you don't know what has hurt the other person. You do really ask forgiveness, say sorry. Now, this is real sorry, not the other sorry. Because this forgiveness must always be granted. It's one of the things when I saw this in the Buddhist sutras, where it says that if somebody sincerely asks forgiveness, it must always be given. Because it's so beautiful to do that. And then you realize you made a mistake, the other person made a mistake, you shared it together, and the chances of you making the same mistake again or something worse are far less. You're learning, you're growing, and you're trusting one another. What a beautiful world that is. And of course the monk here will tell you that we're always doing this in monasteries, asking forgiveness of one another. And one of the last little anecdotes before I finish off and open up for questions. There was these two monks years and years and years ago. Both were American monks. This is when our monastery in UK opened up. And one of them was the old ex-Vietnam vet. I think he came here a few times ago, Ajahn. You know, he's a really tough guy. I mean, really tough guy. He joined the US Marines. He volunteered to join join the US Marines to fight in Vietnam. Why? To get tougher, he said. He was a street kid in Buffalo, New York, apparently, before he joined the Marines. And he got shot in the back of the head in Vietnam. It actually did literally knock some sense into him, and eventually ended up as a monk. But he was really tough. And I said this to the monks the other day. Did I tell the story how he became my friend? No, okay. It's a simple thing. It's just by the way, but he was one of my really good friends. Unfortunately, he died of that injury. Had a brain tumor later on in his life. But anyway, that when we do our chanting as monks, you've heard me do chanting, there's one chant, there's only one chant which we do, which can be like musical. It's like called inviting the heavenly beings to, before we actually do the real chanting. And it goes something like, and I'm not as musical as I used to be, Paritavana metang sameta badanta. I've lost my voice these days, I'm getting old man. But he'd sang it so beautifully. And all the other monks, when he started doing this, all the other monks, they looked at him and said, that's not what you're supposed to do. You're a forest monk. You're not supposed to chant it like that. They really put him down. And you could see his body language. He was so sad. He'd really put so much effort and energy into learning that chant and doing it beautifully. And I was such a junior monk, so when I went out, I whispered into his ear. I said, This was a chant for inviting heavenly beings, that if I was a heavenly being, I would have certainly come. I just said something nice to him. And just that one response, that made him a friend for life. It was amazing just how one kind word, when everyone else was putting him down, meant so much to him. And he was such a tough monk. It was nice to have him as a friend. But anyhow, I wasn't there at the time, but apparently he was having an argument with another American monk who was an ex-real estate millionaire, made a lot of money in real estate, over $1 million, and was exploring his spiritual life, and they're having an argument, nose to nose. Neither would give in. And the other monks were too scared to get involved. They thought this was going to be a fight. Like fists. And apparently what happened was that one of the monks, it was the monk who was an ex-Vietnam veteran, the ex-Marine, he just realized what he was doing. He just got a bit of mindfulness. And even though he was senior to the real estate ex-millionaire, he went down to the ground and he bowed to him and said, "Please, I ask your forgiveness. I shouldn't have done that." Just that simple ceremony of forgiveness. From the Vietnam veteran to the real estate millionaire. They're both monks now. And then both of them just burst out crying, weeping, and then just hugged each other. It would be wonderful if we'd have managed to have the time of that time when there was the smartphones where you could record that. It was beautiful. Someone realized there was something more important than being right, and that was asking forgiveness. We all make mistakes. None of us is perfect. We all do stupid things. We don't need to say sorry. You say, "Please forgive me," and you forgive me. That is something more beautiful. And once that is said and done, that's it. Finished. Instead of some of these old regrets, old guilt, going for year after year after year after year. Is that how we want to live? Instead, we make mistakes. We learn from it. We really do learn from it. We do much better next time. That's how I taught in school. That's how we should live our life. So how many times have you done stupid things to me? How many times have I told you off? Have I ever told you off for getting me Gucci glasses? You too? No, of course, that's nothing. I'm very grateful for you. So, that's the talk for tonight. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So, any questions from anyone here, or questions from the floor? Is this the best Buddhist society in Australia? Is it perfect? It's never perfect. It is the best Buddhist society in Nansen Way. Brilliant. Anyway, oh my goodness, 6 talks here. First one, many times when I meditate, I feel my whole body disappear. Yay! But I get falling asleep also. You can't have falling asleep and, you fall asleep when your whole body disappears. That's just like tiredness. Carry on meditating, get to the point where you've got full of energy. It's not sort of stressed out, especially on retreats. Because on retreats you can catch up on your sleep, there's no stress, you've got nothing to do, nothing to achieve, there's no stress in life. You don't have any sales targets to meet, or so many reports to write. You've nothing to do, totally free. Imagine that. And then of course, you catch up on your sleepiness, and afterwards, when the body does disappear, whoa, you don't feel sleepy at all. All the energy you had, which was, please excuse me, wasted in your sight, hearing, smell, taste, touch, and brain, all of that disappears, and your mind is all that's left, and that's totally powered up. All the energy which you have for those other 5 senses is now just in your mind. Really bliss out. Well, okay. I thought I might do this talk tonight, but I gave it to the monks on Wednesday, just because. Now I'm usually really, really, really healthy, but I don't know why, I must have eaten something wrong or something. On Wednesday, was it Wednesday? I think it's about Wednesday, or Tuesday or something. Anyway, last week at monastery, I went back to my hut after lunch. I felt my tummy was getting a bit sickly. And also, just not so much my tummy, but my throat was getting really itchy and coughy. I suffer from hay fever. That's my father had asthma. And it really got sort of really coughing more and more. I also thought I was coming down with some fever or some flu. And you know what it's like, you're really coughing, you can't stop, and you really feel low energy, really low energy. And instead of lying down, I thought, no, I'm a monk. I just crossed my legs and started meditating. It felt really awful, meditating with lots of aches and pains and really feel low energy and dull. I know how to do this, I've done it too many times already. You just really go into it. Really go into it, in this moment, into these nasty, yucky feelings. I went right into it, really into it. And that was the end of that sickness. And afterwards, it's probably still the case. It must have been Wednesday or Thursday. I've been high for days. No drugs. No methamphetamines. It's much better than I don't know, I've never taken methamphetamines. But you're really high, just joyful. And sometimes, when you really get into this meditation, you go through the sleepiness, let it be, that's just you're tired. But when you get past that sleepiness, wow, you really can, really sort of strong energy, and it's amazing what you can zap away. So I told the monks, you can ask me anything, and any privilege, and I could say yes. You're just so happy. Anyway, from Hong Kong. Okay, I would like help with my indecision. I keep changing my mind, or can't make up my mind in my career. Okay, you don't have to make up your mind. Oh, okay, this is how you make up your mind. You're a layperson here, so take a coin. Toss it. I did this once to this lady over in Oslo, because she asked me, it's in Oslo Oslo University. She asked me a question time, said, my big decision in my life, I don't know how to make it, it's driving me crazy, what should I do? And that's when I said, well, let's make it a bit more concrete. Suppose that the decision was whether you want to marry the guy sitting next to you. And oh my goodness, I shouldn't have said that, but I've already said it, so I can't do the mistake twice. You're not supposed to read people's minds, because she put her head in her hands. Oh my goodness, I've been busted by Ajahn Brahm. Because that was what she was thinking. I nailed it straight away, shouldn't have done that. But anyway, I said, look, suppose it's, should I marry the guy sitting next to me? So it's easy. Take a coin. Toss it. Heads, I marry him. Tails, I don't. And she thought I was crazy. But it's actually probably useful that, I knew exactly what she wanted to ask, because that gave her a bit of confidence in me. And I said, heads, I marry him. Tails, I don't. So he tossed the coin up. Comes down, say heads. What's your reaction? Heads, I marry him. Tails, I don't. Do you think, let's do 2 out of 3? That means you don't want to marry him. But if it comes out tails, tails, I don't want to marry him, I think, 2 out of 3. Or tossing the coin is not to make the decision for you. It's actually to reveal what you really want to do. And that's why we toss the coin. So, over in Hong Kong, what job would you like to do? Toss the coin. So heads, I take the job, tails, I don't. And after you've done that, how do you feel? And that's how you feel afterwards. That is the most important indicator. But number two, it doesn't really matter so much what job you take. When you leave this hall, when you go out at one of those 3 doors, you can turn left or you can turn right. Or you can have lots of indecision. Should I turn left or should I turn right? The path goes all around in a circle, so it always comes back again. Whichever path you go out, left or right, it always joins up again afterwards, so it doesn't really matter. In other words, whatever decision you make, whatever job you decide to do, the decision isn't important. What you do afterwards, that's important. You make it work. You don't waste all your energy, should I, shouldn't I, should I, shouldn't I, should I, shouldn't I. I don't know, whatever. Make the decision, and then afterwards, that is where you put all your energy into making it work. It's amazing you can make almost anything work. I changed industries 3 times and I'm still lost whether to go back, to stay put or to change to something new. Nothing is ever new, is it? So really, but anyway, what industry you do. It's also not so important what job you do or what industry you're in. What's really important is how you do it. What energy you put into and what care, what sort of beautiful qualities you put into whatever you have to do in life. In other words, if you're a monk, fine, but really put a lot of effort and care into being a monk. If you're sort of a doctor, put lots of care and effort, whatever you can do in being a doctor. If you're a bus driver, care and effort into being a bus driver, doing the best you possibly can do. If you're retired, give as much effort as possible of staying in bed in the morning. If you're retired, I don't know what you do. Just like, sometimes when you wake up in the morning, there's nothing in the refrigerator or the pantry to cook with. What are you talking about? You always find something in there to cook something delicious. That's why even the other day, I don't know if I said this last week, but it's still in my mind, just as a joke, I told one of the Anagarikas, I said, look, we've got lots of soups in the morning in this cold weather, but I've never had baked bean soup yet. So he made me some. And it was really delicious. And all the monks had it. There was nothing to send downstairs to the poor Anagarikas who did the cooking. They complained. The point was, no matter what you're doing, what you have to work with, what job you're doing, what food you have to prepare, a really smart person can take baked beans and turn it into a beautiful soup. So whatever job you do, it's not so much the job. It's the amount of care, effort, love, whatever you put into that job, rather than the type of job. I'm 54 years old, this is from the US, and can afford to retire early. I want to spend more time on hobbies, health and relationships, but I work longer and can donate more to charity. What to do? Depends to which charity you want to donate to. The Buddhist Society... You know that was coming, don't you? No, we're doing okay. So, donate more to charity. Look, quite frankly, that charities, if you donate too much money to the Buddhist monastery at Serpentine, they will have to work more, building. I often think it would be wonderful if we ran out of money in our building fund. Ajahn Brahm is going to kill me for this. I haven't thought of that. Isn't it wonderful? We run out of money, so we can't do any more building. Yay! We can all relax because we can't afford anything. Why not? Because sometimes, I say this honestly, I shouldn't say this, but sometimes the monasteries have got too many things. And if we'd had less, we'd have less work to do. How many times have I said your houses, which you live, are way too big, aren't they? How much space do you really need to live? If you want to find out how much space you need to live, next time you're in Bodhinyana Monastery, go and have a look in my cave. Small, that's all you need. So why do you need to sort of work so hard and do so much charity? People haven't got enough to eat. Why? We waste too much. So little by little, we can actually change some of our perceptions. So I would actually say in the United States, if you can afford to retire early, great, retire early. And don't think about sort of even hobbies. Simplify your life, be really peaceful. One hobby maybe, that's enough. And in relationship and health, have time to spend with your kids. I'm going to tell this story again. It's one of my favourite stories. I've made a lot of people cry telling this story because it relates to them so easily. About the kid who was waiting for his dad to come home from work. When the dad came home late, the kid asked, "Daddy, how much do you earn at work?" "None of your business. I'm going to have a cup of coffee." "But Daddy, how many dollars do you earn?" "I told you, none of your business." "But Daddy, how much do you earn in the office?" Like 3 times. "Enough, go to your room." These are the days before you had mobile phones, and the last thing you want to do is send your kid to the room because everything's there. You can email mummy to get some food. But anyway, he sent to the room. And poor old Daddy, after a while, when he relaxed a bit more, I thought, it's really hard on his son. He only asked how much he earned at work. So he went up to his son's room, knocked on the door, let himself in and said to his son, "Look, son, I was just tired, stressed out at work. I don't know why you want to know this. You're only 6 or 7 years of age. But I earn $20 an hour at work," said Daddy. "Thank you, Daddy," said the kid. "Now, Daddy, can I please borrow $10? And if you've got angry at your kid once, you don't want to do it again. So he bit his lip, opened his wallet and gave a $10 note to his son. "Here you are, son, here's $10. And the son smiled and said a second time, "Thank you, Daddy," and opened up his bedside, next to his bed, the little drawer next to his bed, and counted out $10 in coins, and put it together with the $10 he just got from his daddy, and said, "Daddy, you earn $20 an hour at work. Can I now please have $20 of your time?" 1 hour. That's what the kids want more than anything else. Time. And that kid needed to buy it from his father, $20 an hour. I remember this Muslim girl, she was a radio presenter over in, I think Makassar, over in Sulawesi or somewhere. And she just burst out crying. Single mum, she's Muslim, single mum, had 1 kid, and she was working so hard trying to get enough money to send her kid to a good school. She didn't realize that what her kid needed more than anything else was her mummy. So, yes, spend time with people. It's more important than donating more money to charity. Sri Lanka, Ajahn, Sri Lanka going to introduce Tripitaka Conservation Act. Well, there is debate among different Buddhists that are for and against it. Is there a need of legislation to protect Buddhism? What are your thoughts? Of course not legislation. Tripitaka is important. That's the suttas. But more important than that is actually the practice. People actually meditating, keeping precepts. Quite frankly, as you'll find out on Sunday, any of you come here, that it's okay to know what the Buddha said. But what did it mean? Is most important. You can get these words, but if you actually experience those things, and you know exactly what they are, you can't get that knowledge just from scholarship. It has to come from experience as well. The scholarship and experience go together. And so legislation won't work. instead of, I don't know what the Conservation Act really is, but even there, for those who are scholars, I'm a well-known monk even in Sri Lanka, and I just put my reputation up on anything to... The truth is more important. It's very clear that the Buddha did not teach Abhidhamma. Sometimes people say, that's evil monk. Can't say that. But it's quite true. The Tripitaka was only Sutta and Vinaya. There's 2 Tripikas, a Dvipitaka. The rest was actually added afterwards. So you're going to get in a lot of trouble, a Conservation Act. It's much more a practice. Encourage people to keep their precepts. It's so much more fun keeping precepts. Encourage people to meditate. It's not that hard. And you get such beautiful, inspirational feelings. It's okay to have a map of, say, the Rocky Mountains. When you go there, you know much more about the Rocky Mountains you can ever know when you just look at a map. Tripitaka is maps. You need people to go there as well, and actually to understand what those things really mean. Okay, from South Australia, lastly. Whoops, I can't see the end of this. Get this off. Okay. I feel so angry often about the way the Australian government treat women, especially over the alleged rape. Oh, there's lots of questions here. Again, people should always be respected, every time. I'm not quite sure what those details are, because there's only a certain amount of things which I know about. And feeling angry doesn't help anybody. Because if you get angry, then you go to human beings and just to complain and to say your truth, but all people see is your anger. You have to be much wiser than to have legitimate concerns and always expressed with anger. There's many concerns which I had over many, many years, such as, with the ordination of bhikkhunis, which I was really prominent in. But I never got angry. You can't get angry. Otherwise, say, Ajahn Brahm is angry. You should go back and do some more meditation, stop getting angry before you start ordaining bhikkhunis or doing anything else like that. That would be a fair point. Anger distorts your perception, distorts your speech, and takes away your power. You always have like a Gandhi. I often mention him. Now, Mahatma Gandhi, he kicked out the British Raj from India. It's amazing what he did. I remember someone actually showed me the clip from the movie where he told the viceroy, said, you're going to walk out of India. Hey, what are you talking about? India is British, they said. No, you're going to walk out. No violence. And the British did leave. And Gandhi was so incredibly powerful, not with anger, with morality and the strength with that which that gave him. Quickly, from Germany, how do you say sorry and I love you to people who are already dead and who you made sad and you want to make them feel happy again? What do you do and how do I send them love? I always thought that when my father died at 16, I thought, so many things I would like to say sorry to him for. I couldn't. He was dead. Until later on I found out you can. So I remember doing that. Just getting a photograph of him. And I forget which temple it was. I think it may have even been here on Magnolia Street. Putting in front of the shrine, bowing 3 times and doing a little forgiveness ceremony. Dad, for all those times I played my Jimi Hendrix when you wanted to listen to your Frank Sinatra. Simple things, but they really meant a lot to me. Please forgive me. Or one of the Cambodian men went to his house, to a dana. This is so many years ago as well. And he'd married. He was one of the people in the killing fields, managed to escape over to Thailand with his wife. But through the jungles of Thailand at that time, his wife developed malaria and succumbed in the refugee camp. They managed to both get to the refugee camp, but his wife died in the refugee camp. And he lost everything. he managed to find another lady in a similar situation, and they got married, and when they came to Perth, living in a sort of small government flat, they invited the monks for lunch. And the most beautiful part of that, I'll never forget this, we were doing the chanting, and he was next to his wife, and he moved in front of his wife and got out a picture from his jacket pocket. He dressed up as he possibly can. And it really was something he'd love to let more people know about. It was a picture of his first wife, the one who he escaped, but she died, who got malaria in the jungles between Thailand and Cambodia, and died in the refugee camp. It was this dog-eared, creased picture, the only picture he had of her. And he put it in front of her as the monks, including me, were doing the chanting. So he could say sorry to her and say his goodbyes. He did it so beautifully, and he was weeping. And when we finished our chanting, he wiped his eyes, and he put the photograph in his pocket again and went and sat next to his wife. For that moment, while we were doing the chanting, he was married to somebody else, his ex-wife. He hadn't yet managed to say all the sorries and the goodbyes and to reconcile. He didn't have any chance before. He was a refugee and just worried about where he would have survived. Now he could do that. It's one of the beautiful ceremonies. I always remember him weeping, and then as soon as the chanting stopped, he wiped his eyes and sat next to his new wife. Beautiful thing to do. That's what I would say to you. Get a picture of them. Quiet place just by yourself. A special place for you. Say your forgivenesses and sorries and cry your eyes out. And then, once that's finished, get up and go back to your present life. Singapore, this question, since I had a metta meditation, is there a fake it till you make it for loving kindness? No, I don't think so, really. That's one thing I don't think you can do, because loving kindness there's a flavour to it, a taste to it. So if we can get a little bit of it, and then it just really, really grows. It's not that hard to do. A little bit, I don't know if you've got like a cat or a dog or a little bird comes into your window and you sort of pick it up and nurture it back to life or something. I'm not quite sure what you can do. But having loving kindness, I don't think it's a fake it till you make it. There's so many opportunities to feel. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to cry your eyes out. And just allow animals sometimes. Animals are just so wonderful to have loving kindness towards. Anyway, really try faking it for a while until you actually feel it. When it's real, it's so powerful and strong, and it's just, ooh. Other people can feel it too when you have loving kindness. Anyway, okay, quickly, last question. When we start learning to see in Buddha's mind, we're seeing that sensual world isn't satisfying. How do we avoid being depressed with this fact now that everything seems empty? Emptiness is gorgeous. Emptiness has so much space in it. Emptiness is the most beautiful thing in the whole world. If you do it properly, once all the sensuous stuff starts to disappear, what's left is incredible. I'm not a sensory monk. I'm a happy monk. Do I look depressed? Sometimes I think I'm missing out on life. Not getting depressed. But no, because once you get some good meditation going, you hide. Like I said just the other day, just meditating because I was, I don't know what might have happened, but it looked like I was getting sick. Zap, that was the end of that sickness. And just high for the next few days. Not depressed at all. Whoa, this mind's got incredible power. Whoa, yeah, go for it. So, when you're not so much seeing the Buddha's mind, but you're actually feeling it, the stillness of peace. That's why, just even in this thing called the first jhana, these deep meditations, they call that just the sambodhi citta. This is the Buddha saying it, the Buddha mind. This is just a deep meditation. So blissful. You get this incredibly high title. Sambodhisukha, sorry. The happiness of a Buddha. Wow. This is powerful stuff. So I don't want to get you all to be craving for getting these states, because craving is the last thing which helps. But sometimes you get so still and so peaceful, your mind blisses out. Sambodhisukha, wow. So anyway, it's not enlightenment yet, but it's getting a taste of it. So of course, if it really, not so seeing in the Buddha's mind, but being in the Buddha's mind, being in the mind of the Dhamma, really being still and peaceful, wow. And the five senses gone. What you got left there is more than satisfying, incredibly satisfying, blissing out. I'm saying that because I just want each one of you to do that. Why not? It happens. Okay, so that's enough. Unless there's any other questions? No, it's gone on for extra long. But don't worry, next week be somebody else, because I'll be down in Albany. So next week can have a shorter talk and get back home earlier. Sorry for being over time. Anyway, oh yeah, we just do the bowing to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha now. Arahang Sama Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Suakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagava Shavaka Sangho Sanghang Namami. I wish you all a pleasant night. Please drive carefully. Hello. Oh, yeah.